Today is the last day of March, 31st, and it's an absolutely glorious day. Temperature is about 18 stroking 20 at the moment, and we're going to do our first inspection after the winter of the two hives we have at home. They're two very contrasting hives. It looks like one has got through winter a lot better than the other and is a lot larger. So we're going to go into the one that we think is the weaker hive at the moment and just see what we can see and see how they've fared, tidy them up and possibly give them some support from the stronger hive in the way of capped brood. So we're just removing the patty that we put on 2 weeks ago, and you can see that they've really tucked into this in 2 weeks. They haven't taken it all down, but you can see now there's plenty of bees on there, and all these bees here are taking parts of this pate down into the brood nest. We're now into the second box, and what we're looking at here is a group of dead bees, and this is a consequence of the fact they couldn't, during the cold spell, reach the honey that was in the hive, possibly even on frames further back along here, but it would be so cold and there were so few of them that they just clustered in one place and dived into, you can see an example of this, they've gone into the comb. You can see all their butts sticking up here where they've gone looking for food, and unfortunately because they're not clustered together and the cold weather they haven't survived. And then there's one more frame before we get to the main cluster also with exactly the same issue. They've gone in, no food, they've eaten all the honey up, and they've dived in to try and find the last remnants of food, and of course there isn't any. What's such a shame is that the box above them that was on there is absolutely full of honey, but they haven't gone upwards, they've just gone sideways and of course found nothing at all. Although we've lost some bees, we just come to the next two frames, and it's so pleasing to see that we've got capped brood, and here we have some bees actually hatching as we speak, and here's one that's just hatched already. So things are looking up. They're really working hard to try and build this colony back up again, and they will do with a bit of support. What we've done now is to give them food, and we know the temperature is going to drop drastically. We're going to put this frame in from the top box, which has plenty of honey in it, alongside this frame which we've also put in, which has plenty of honey, and that's either side. Now we've got honey there, a bit of honey there, the main brood nest in the middle, and honey either side. Now at this time, because the hive is fairly small, we're not too worried about these last three frames being empty at the moment, but the fact they're in there will give them some form of insulation against the cold weather that's going to come next week. So that's this box set up, and the plan now is that we'll swap this box with the bottom box, and we'll actually remove it because there's nothing in the bottom box, and then put the box over here on the top. So they're going to end up with just two boxes and the brood nest confined to about 5 frames in each box. We haven't found the queen yet, but I'm sure she will be in the green box that we're going to inspect next. Of the bottom box, you can see now this is the result of the winter bees that have died off, and we're going to just scrape those away now. This is normal practice. Possibly you can also see all these bees coming back, all these worker bees coming back with nowhere to go, so we don't need to hang around too much, otherwise they won't know what they're doing. So we're just going to empty this out. There we go, and then we'll put the entrance reducer back in now, and then as quickly as possible we'll give them a box because they don't know what they're doing. Now you can see from this frame that bees are really wanting to get up and go. What a superb pollen frame we've got here. All these little holes are filled with pollen, and then there's honey around the outside. So this is all in preparation for when the queen can then start laying up on this particular frame. But that's a lovely frame of pollen. So we haven't found the queen, but we certainly know that she's in here and alive and well, because as you can see now, you can see the eggs that she's laid sitting in the bottom of the cells, and there's plenty of them. So she's making a really good effort during the springtime to build this colony back up to full strength. What a productive hive. They've taken every single bit of the pollen patty, which was covering an area of about that size, and in 2 weeks they've taken all of this down into the hive to store to help the queen with the laying. Fantastic.
We've just taken the bottom box off this larger hive because it was empty, and some of the comb is very, very dark and needs replacing. You can see all the bees that have been lost, they're just coming into land. So we're going to inspect this hive and check that the queen is laying properly, but we're very certain that she is with the amount of pollen that's coming in, and we will be certain that she will allow us to take 2 frames of capped brood out. I'm sure there's lots of capped brood in here, and give it to the smaller hive.
So in this hive, very, very strong. Here's a complete comb of pollen, looks fantastic, but we've also got on this frame alone 3 or 4 drones already, which is most unusual during your first inspection that you've got drones. So we would anticipate with this hive there's every chance they would be looking, or they would have the opportunity to swarm early. But at the moment it's all looking superb. Here's a lovely example of a frame where the bees have been gathering now the nectar. This is very early nectar. It can only be possibly the early dandelion or the flowering cherry, but they've certainly filled this frame up with this year's nectar ready to go.
So it's very important for us to get rid of last year's honey, take it out of the hive to give them space to fill up with this year's nectar, and we'll store the old honey in the garage ready to feed other hives on the farm probably during the dearth in June and when we make splits.
So here she is, here's the queen, 3 years old, 2018, in theory past her sell-by date, but she's absolutely incredible. She's a laying machine, and she's now laid up in this hive alone about 10 frames of capped. As you can see, this is a typical example, this frame that she's just laid up, and she's still looking around now as keen as ever to lay eggs. Fantastic.
So we're just taking 2 of the frames of capped brood out of this colony. 2 things to slow this colony down. As you can see on this frame alone, see how many drone brood there is. So there is a chance that in this new colony they won't be able to support this number of drones, and they'll probably cannibalise them and chuck them out of the hive. That's not a big deal because it is really too early to have drones in the air. So we're building up our weak hive with a strong hive. We have to shake the bees off and quickly transfer them to this hive. And capped brood tends to keep a lot warmer than open brood, so that if there are fewer bees in this colony, hopefully the risk of the brood chilling is down to a minimum. But as you can see on here, the spread of bees is actually quite a lot, so we're confident that the brood will be kept warm during the next week or so and be allowed to hatch. We're just now going to put in another frame of pollen, and this is one of the amazing frames that we've taken from the big hive as well. And we think that the extra workforce and this extra food source will get this colony going just as strongly as the other hive. So just making some room, and we can close this hive up and leave it for 2 weeks. See how much they have grown in 2 weeks. In this hive we'll carry on inspecting, and we'll just see how many frames of brood there is actually in this colony. So we've done a complete inspection of this hive, and we have left 4 frames of honey in the top, 2 there, 2 there. We're just filling the centre of this box with drawn empty comb for the queen to lay in and for them to fill with the new nectar that's coming in. We've actually got 6 frames of honey that we're going to store in the garage from this hive. It's just amazing that these 2 hives were similar in strength last year, and yet they are so different at this time of the year. One's overwintered extremely well in this hive, and obviously the queen has started laying earlier, and this hive unfortunately has had a bit of a knock, and a lot of bees have died over winter. As we were saying in our November video, there were lots of bees working, probably needlessly at that time of the year, and because they were working too hard they died too early. In this hive all was quiet in November, as if the queen from experience knew to be much more dormant in November and then start early in the spring. So we're going to put this hive together and leave them for a couple of weeks and then see what the strength of the 2 colonies are. We did find some queen cups in this hive, which means that they are on the process to swarming, but nothing further than that. There were no eggs in the queen cups and no charged queen cells or anything like that, which is what you'd expect. We'd be a bit worried if we'd seen queen cells at this time of the year. So hopefully by taking those 2 frames out, we're stopping the queen from swarming early and helping this colony out.